Hi, this is Brian from Aqua Coat. Today we're talking about the Aqua Coat grain fillers. Okay, so all of the grain fillers have the similar attributes in the sense that they're all water-based, they're all eco-friendly, they're low odor, low VOC, they're non-flammable, non-combustible, water-soluble, easy sanding, water cleanup. They're fast drying times, and they have a shelf life greater than a year, and they'll pass 3 freeze-thaw cycles, though we don't necessarily recommend you letting it freeze. Okay, our first one is the original clear grain filler. We created this, and this is used on guitars and musical instruments, kitchen tables, cabinets, vanities. If you want to stain it, and then you want to put this on, and then you want to clear coat over the top of it. This one is 21% solids. This one is 25% solids. Somebody came to us and asked us if we make it in a higher resin, and we did made it in a higher solids, and this one is 25% solids. It'll perform better in less coats. As you can see, this is not grain filled, and this is grain filled. You can see with the light. Okay. So we were selling these, and people were using these to paint their kitchen cabinets, and said, you know, this would work much better if I could see it. I can't see it. It's so clear. I didn't think I applied enough, or I sanded too much out. They said, why don't you make, customers literally said, why don't you make it in a white? So we formulated a white. Same water cleanup, all exact the same stuff like that. 21% solids, 25% solids, 31% solids. Okay? Just to show you what this looks like. You can see not grain filled, primed and painted. They're painted and primed the same amount. So this is the white grain filler. It's white, and it's hard to see, but it goes into your pores and your skin. Kind of, you can see does that show up in there? Not too good today. You can see your fingerprints. Okay. So you would take your board or your kitchen cabinets. We're just going to use the white because the clear is so hard to see. The white is going to act just like the clears, except for you can see it. You would clean your kitchen cabinets. You would sand them down to a 220, then up like a 180, then a 220, and then you would start the application process. If you're going to put the grain filler in the sides of the drawers, the sides of the doors that you can't fit with the scraper, use your fingers and a glove, and you can rub it into all those places. Okay, so you want to apply it against the grain, as you can see. Right, it fills the grains and pores, and then blocks them so that whatever you put on top of it will puddle up. Right, that's how you apply it. Scrape off the excess, and you can see how the grains are filled. Right, 2 to 3 coats are recommended. Always try to keep your lid on as much as possible because it dries pretty fast. You can add pigment to these, right? You make the clears black, just add a black dye. You can make, this is what this is. This is painted white with a little bit of black grain filler and then clear coated. This one is a red mahogany stain with some black grain filler over the top of it and clear coated. And this is golden oak with some grain filler over the top of that. Okay, so your application would be apply the grain filler. The application is the same for all of them in the sense that apply the grain filler, let it dry an hour or 2 or longer. You can wait as long as you want. It's not going to hurt it to let it dry longer. Then you let it. Then you apply the filler, sand it right before you're going to apply the next coat. So if you apply it and then apply another coat, you want to sand it right before for adhesion purposes. It doesn't stick to itself. Water-based products don't stick to themselves very well. The solvent-based, heavy-duty solvent-based ones will melt what's underneath them. Water-based doesn't do that. So you need to give it a little help and scuff it right before, and they'll bond better. You want to apply a coat, let it dry an hour or 2, apply a coat, let it dry an hour or 2, apply a third coat if that's what you decide you need. Then you let that final coat dry overnight, and it will, all evaporation will have happened, and you can wait till longer than that, but then scuff it right before you're going to apply your primer or your clear coats for the clears. When applying the primer over this, you want to use a tannin blocking primer. Oak has an oil in it called tannin, and it will bleach through and leach through and turn your primer and your paint a little brown, a little yellow. So you always got to seal that in, and you want to coat a shellac over the grain filler when you're painting, over the grain filler. Zinsser makes shellacs over the grain filler, and then your paint. 1 to 2 coats of primer, and then 2 coats of paint. So with the clears, you want to, I think that you want to apply the grain filler first, right? I think it looks much richer when you put the grain filler on, when you put the stain on, and then you put the grain filler over it. It's just so, it pops. The stain makes it pop, and you want to, and the grain filler is so clear that it'll keep it that color. It will accept stain. So in reference to that, if you're going to use the oil-based stain, you want to apply a coat of stain on. You want to let it dry 48 to 72 hours. Then you want to apply the grain filler over that as per the instructions. If you're using a water-based stain, you want to put the water-based stain on. You want to put a de-waxed shellac over it. Let it dry a couple hours. Put a de-waxed shellac over it. Then put the grain filler on top of the de-waxed shellac. The de-waxed shellac the grain filler will adhere to it. Just a regular shellac has wax in it, and it will repel the water-based product, the water-based grain filler. If you're going to put the grain filler down, and this is common too, people don't want too much color. They want a little bit of color, but they don't want too much to penetrate. So people will put a coat of the grain filler down first, of the clear grain filler first, and then they'll put a coat of their stain over the top of it to kind of mute how the coloring is. Okay, commonly asked questions. Do I use a water-based or oil-based top coat over the grain fillers? So with the clears, you can use anything you want. The method of vigorously rubbing them in will cause problems, can cause problems. If you apply the grain filler and you want to put a solvent-based top coat over it, if you spray anything you can spray on it, it will not affect it. But if you're rubbing it in, it could cause a problem. It will accept nitrocellulose, it will accept vinyl, it will accept epoxy. A lot of people put this down on walnut before they're putting epoxy in. And it goes on real easy and sands real easy. And you can spray water-based on top of it. If you're going to brush something on, that's fine. Just don't vigorously brush it, because you put the grain filler in the grains and pores, and it blocks the grains and pores, literally bridges across the grains. And when you spray your top coats or whatever your primer is on top, it will puddle up and level out. If you put something on that rubs it and forces it, something's going to give. What types of primer and paint? We already kind of went over the tannin blocking primer. And just a good quality. The better the paint, the better your finish will be. Any one of the major name brands for manufacturers and sellers of paint will work. Can I use the white grain filler over already painted cabinets? Yes. If you've painted your cabinets, or you have a contractor paint your cabinets, they may come to me and say, Mike, I had somebody paint it, it didn't turn out too well. There's lots of grains and pores. Can I paint my cabinets? If you let the cabinets fully cure, not dry, but cure to what the manufacturer of the paint's guidelines are, you can scuff the cabinets with a 220, apply the white grain filler over that. If you're worried about, usually this white grain filler will be very similar to a lot of white paints in color, so you can add a little bit of water-soluble trans tints or dyes to it. You can actually add a little bit of food coloring to it and stir it in. If you can add some black, it'll look a little gray, so you can see it, right? So you can see it pop out like you can kind of see this pop out. If you open this up and it's dry, take a little teaspoon of very, very hot water, stir it in, and it'll actually get to much thin. It'll go to like a cream, okay? That's the way it's supposed to be. If it doesn't go to a cream and stays separated, it's expired. Does temperature or humidity affect the application of the grain filler and the storage of the grain filler? So you want to store this at around 70 degrees. Yes, if it gets to 55, but if you leave it in your shop and it freezes multiple times over the winter, it can be a problem. Application, you want to apply it at about 70 degrees and at about 50% humidity. You're putting on thin coats, so you want to make it the right temperature and the right humidity. Otherwise, it'll kind of get mealy and stick upon itself and pull itself out of the grain. once it gets going. So that's the temperature and the humidity. Can you tint the filler? Yes, you can tint this with Mixol or water-soluble transtints and dyes. You want to take a little sub-container empty. You want to put a little bit of dye in it with a little bit of water, hot water. You want to dilute the dye first with the hot water and then add the grain filler to the dye. This is the clear grain filler or the white grain filler to the dye to get the look you're looking for. You just want to make sure you can able to dilute it a little bit first. Why would I not use wood putty or joint compound? Why not use just wood putty or joint compound? Wood putty and joint compound are made out of are clay based. Okay, clay like pottery can dry and crack. Clay is also kind of a little harder. Wood putty is a little harder to sand and a lot messier. The Aqua Coat is water based. It is acrylic. Acrylic, this will sand to a very fine powder. That's the way we designed it. And you want to make sure that you let it dry before you sand it good, and it won't crack. If you have any questions, feel free to contact us at sales@aquacoat.com and we'll respond. Technical questions, product questions, anything you need to know on that, we're really good about that.